Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello. I give up. I can't get I was just about to say I can't get it up, which I think, well, I feel like the chair, I feel diminished. Huh? You got one there? That's okay. Yeah. So, guys, sorry about our absence yesterday. We're still getting wrinkles worked out, apparently, here over at the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. There's some people who work here at the university who seem to be under the conception that they're here to teach. Well, so what happened is I guess a professor had scheduled a class in the studio yesterday from 10 till noon, and nobody had caught that. It had happened, I guess the memo that the studio was for us from 10 to 11 has not gotten to all interested or disinterested parties. Hopefully this is the last time that kind of a snafu occurs, and we thank Point Park for getting it together. What, you want me to get in that chair? No, that's okay. I mean, I can do it in my diminished state. So, didn't get to be here yesterday, and now we're here today. I don't have my Coke or Pepsi. Oh well, let's see if I can do it. Let's see if I can do the show 2 inches shorter and minus my little jolt of caffeine. I think I can. I got so much stuff here, I don't know where to start. I think I say that almost every day. Used to be, back when I did 3 hours of talk radio every day, that I would think, how the hell am I going to, there's nothing going on. Who knew I needed Donald Trump in the White House? Donald Trump in the White House is like the gift that never stops giving for folks like me. To be honest, I just as soon eschew the gift and go back to struggling to fill time. Oh, my. Where to start, really? I loved the story, I guess came out Wednesday, about Pittsburgh having the worst drivers in the country. I loved it because I've thought that since I've come here. The most maddening drivers it is. I don't know. Drivers unlike any place else. It's more than just the Pittsburgh left, which is a phenomenon you do not find anywhere else. It's also, think of Pittsburghers in cars, very odd. The Pittsburgh left, the parking on the wrong side of the street facing the first time, when I first came here, I would turn onto a street and see cars all parked in the same direction on both sides of the street, pointing at me, which immediately told me, you just turned onto a one-way street and you're going the wrong way. And I would look, and it wasn't a one-way street. But they're parked. You cross it's odd. Now I'm used to it. Now I think it's the greatest thing. But Pittsburghers have a very strange relationship with the rules of the road. The rules of the road actually work if everybody follows them. That's how traffic flows, but everybody has to follow them, and Pittsburghers simply don't. That's all there is to it. Anyway, it's now official. We are the worst drivers in the country, tied with New York City. And I don't even think of there being drivers in New York City. I just think of, taxis and delivery folks. And, there it's just... I actually love driving in New York City because it's on the edge. It's... You have to be a block ahead in your mind. You have to really be attentive as hell. And the big thing about Pittsburgh drivers apparently is inattentiveness and cell phone usage, which would result in inattentiveness. It's legal in Pennsylvania to talk on your phone while driving, and in some states it is not. I don't think it should be legal. It's quite clear that it is an extreme distraction and probably costs a lot of lives. Whatever. There we are. And Pittsburgh's low scores dragged the whole state down. So Pennsylvania is, ranked 48th, third worst in the country. Wow. So watch yourselves out there. The other thing they said is we speed more than most people do. I admit to that. And when my mother was last here and I was driving her around, she said, "You're driving awfully fast, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, Mom, but nobody tickets you for speeding around here." And it's true. I've been here 35 years plus. I am by nature somebody who speeds. I've never been stopped. 35 years. And after a while, you think, well, what the hell? They don't give a damn. I've sped by cops. As a matter of fact, I did again today on the Parkway. And this is a speeder's heaven, I'll tell you. Okay, enough of that. I came upon this story, and I don't think it's getting a lot of media. Look, by the way, the tax bill and all that kind of stuff, it's not a tax bill. Can we just, I'm not going to talk about it until it's a bill. All it is a plan for a bill. It's a plan about it's a wish list. I don't know what the hell that was, but it's not a bill. So we're not going to waste our time getting all flipped out about it. It is exactly what one would have expected anyway. It is a total giveaway to the rich and a screw you to everybody else. Oh, God. So I ain't going there. And Trump has also ditched his hopes of... Where'd my email go? Has ditched his hopes of... disappeared there it is. I'm sorry, Celine. I panic first. In the event of any kind of disarray or things askew or difficulties, my motto is panic first. I mean, worst case scenario first. And it's not you don't want me in the foxhole. That's all I'm saying. I'm not the person to have around in times of extreme I really am not. I once had to take a small child to the emergency room because my dog had bit him in the face. After getting the kid into the ER, I, who'd been hyperventilating the whole time, found myself on the floor in the hallway outside being attended to by doctors because I came apart at that. I made it to the point where the kid was in good hands, and then I completely went down myself. You don't want me around. Really not. Let me talk to you about this case. There was a case that the Supreme Court heard the other day that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. It's a case of some Serbian woman and her husband who, after being here for a number of years, were deported. And they were deported because it was found that she had answered one of the questions on whatever the intake questionnaire is, incorrectly. And eventually that led to ICE knocking on her door, and she's gone. She's still fighting, though, and her case made it to the Supreme Court. And the government, arguing its case, is represented, of course, by the Justice Department. And that, of course, is the bailiwick now of Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. And even the conservatives on the court, listening to A.G. Sessions' guy arguing this case, were dumbstruck by the cruelty, I think. Let me tell you about a few exchanges. As I said, she had misstated something about her husband. And this is different, but this was brought up at the trial, at the hearing. One of the things that people are asked when they come into the United States is, have you ever committed a criminal offense, however minor, even if there was no arrest? Who could answer that question no? Huh? Have you ever committed a criminal offense, gone against a law, and even if you weren't caught, you still have to say you did it? Who would say they have never, ever flouted a law? Jaywalking would be it. Me riding to work any morning would be a criminal offense. Smoking pot, criminal offense. Fudging on your taxes, criminal offense. All kinds of stuff. Saying, fraud on an insurance claim, upping the, gaming the system here, there, the other way. Criminal offenses that a lot of people engage in and are not caught. And if you're coming into this country, you are told, I don't care. It's sort of like going to confession. Whatever the hell you did, own it now. And Justice Roberts, the Chief Justice, was sort of blown away by this. He said, you mean if I were to answer that question no, 20 years after I had become an American citizen, naturalized American citizen, you can still knock on my door and say, guess what? You're not an American citizen after all, and we're throwing you out. And the jerk arguing for your government, the United States of America, said, yeah, that's correct. Ah, come on, said Justice Roberts. Stunned. Oh, come on. He said, so I went 5 miles over the speed limit. I was not caught. I don't say that on my form. I'm a good tax-paying naturalized American citizen for 20 years. You find out I did speed. You come to my door. You kick me out of the country. You're telling me that is reasonable? Yes, said Jefferson Beauregard Sessions man on the spot. He said, Sessions man, if we can prove that you deliberately lied in answering that question, then yes, you're out. According to the report, members of the court were incredulous. They were sitting there like with their mouths dropped open by the unbelievably unyielding, sort of stupid, zero tolerance position that the Trump administration was arguing. Several justices seemed taken aback by the government's unyielding position. Justice Kennedy, our usual swing vote, said this: "Your argument is demeaning the priceless value of citizenship." Elena Kagan said, "I am horrified to know. You mean every time I lie about my weight, that would be akin to this? That it would have the consequence of me being tossed out of the country, according to what you're saying?" Said the attorney representing us. "Yep, you betcha. The law applies to any false statements." Justice Breyer cut to the chase and said, what you're arguing and what you're asking us to agree with is that probably the vast percentage of all citizens of the United States, naturalized citizens of the United States, would be subject to deportation. And if those of us native-born were under this same regimen, we too would be subject to deportation. This is ludicrous. And Justice Roberts, getting a little serious for a moment, said, your position would give prosecutors all over this country extraordinary power. Because if you take the position that not answering correctly about a speeding ticket or your weight is enough to subject a person to denaturalization, to deportation, well, then the government would have the opportunity to denationalize anyone they want. But under the Trump administration and Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, I think that's exactly what they want. So, wow, I wish I could have seen that one, because it's rare. Justice Thomas, of course, said nothing. It's rare to read about an oral argument in which it is said that the entire crowd, Republican, Democrat, conservative, and liberal justices on the bench were all dumbstruck at the argument being proffered by the Justice Department. Okay, and back to Trump's wonderful administration. One of my nominees for most vile person that has been appointed to a position of power in the Trump administration is a guy whose name is not generally heard or bandied about. I've spoken of him before. He is the new chair of the Federal Communications Commission. His name is Ajit Pai. He's the one who already gave the go-ahead for snooping on everything that we do, anything you do online. The cable companies, that your provider can access it, right? So you have no privacy whatsoever. And now he is bound and determined to get rid of net neutrality. Bound and determined. And net neutrality, as you know, is a rule that is meant to prevent the big guys who, like AT&T and Comcast, that provide the pipes through which all of our stuff flows on the internet, from giving special treatment to the folks they want to put roadblocks or tolls so they can't put roadblocks in the way of somebody else wanting the same kind of access. this jerk who now heads the FCC, this clearly an Ayn Rand fan type, believes that calling the internet, acting like the internet is a utility is absurd. Well, gee whiz, you gotta be kidding me. If anything is a utility in this day and age, it is the internet. Everything is there. Everything that somebody needs is there. It is a utility, as is electricity, as is, right? It's a utility. And it was always treated like that. He doesn't think it should be. He believes that the broadband industry should be allowed free, unfettered ability to decide who gets in its pipes, how fast they get to travel, and they get to regulate themselves because this Ayn Rand believer believes that they wouldn't do anything that wouldn't ultimately benefit themselves, and that, of course, then benefits us. What? He doesn't want them treated like a public utility. He wants them free. Which, by the way, would mean, speaking of free, that your cable bills, your internet bills would go sky high. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Watch this guy. He's scary. And, wow. You wonder, he's obviously very bright, this guy. You just wonder where their education went awry, why they don't understand that, like, in regards to insurance companies and health care and everything else, that when you allow the big boys to regulate themselves, the little guys, the regular people, the consumers, get screwed every time. They don't see that? And then government has to step in. You let the big corporations be unfettered, you will end up with holy hell. And we're heading that way. God. For instance, did I mention healthcare? I'm sure I get this crap all the time, but I just happen to read it. I'm old enough to be on Medicare. So here's my Medicare summary notice. This is not a bill, it says. Glad to see that. But it's just telling me all the things I've done where I've used my Medicare card of late, and whether or not the service was approved, and whether and how much the charge was, and how much Medicare paid, and how much I might still owe. And I was so blown away when I really looked at this. First of all, I have spoken to you before about losing the ability to get a monthly injection that I had been getting. And it had been very difficult to find someone who would give it to me. I ended up going to this Walgreens place that would do it. And then Walgreens decided they wouldn't do it anymore. Why is that? Because they can't make any money on this. I was told these injections cost $1,000. And the bill each, so $12,000 a year for these injections I need to stave off a multitude of horrors, including my lung dysfunction. And I couldn't find any, but once when they charged me, it was $1,000 a shot. Medicare paid it. I didn't pay anything. But then Walgreens said, we don't want to do this one anymore. And I couldn't find anywhere to go. So I went off. I didn't get the shot for 6 months. And ladies and gentlemen, in those 6 months, I was sick a lot. I was absent from this program a lot. Every respiratory virus that came down the pike, bang, I got. I ended up instead at MedExpresses and prednisone and blah, 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 and gasping for air. Yeah. So I finally find a place to go. And it turns out I have to go to the hospital now every time. And I go to, it's a UPMC facility. This is the first time I looked at the charge since I've been going. How much? I get this once a month. Every month, UPMC charges for my shot. It's a shot! $7,543. I looked at that and thought, you're kidding. What? And then I looked again. Yeah, February 6th, $7,543 charged by UPMC. March 6th, $7,543. I'm going again next, I think in a few weeks. $7,000. Every time I go in there, I'm there for like 10 minutes. $7,543? You gotta be kidding me. Now here's the other thing. It says Medicare approves that amount. What? However, Medicare only pays $800. I don't care why. Those numbers right here show a totally absurd, inexcusable, broken system. You cannot defend this. No one could. The insurance companies can't. UPMC sure as hell can't. Single payer, anybody? Single payer, anybody? The only reason we had Obamacare in the first place is because of this kind of crap. Providers and insurance companies and pharmaceuticals just screwing us. Man, $7,534 going right here once a month. Unbelievable. So what does that mean? If I didn't have insurance, UPMC would actually expect me to pay them $7,543 a month for a shot so I can breathe? What?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
They sent you to a UPMC hospital to get these shots, right?
I was told that's where I could get them.
Okay. At your next bill, look and see if they put a hospital charge on top of the doctor's fee charge.
Okay.
Because
well, that would
they
be...
sneak it in when they recommend you to these facilities.
Okay. You know, reading these bills, too, is a... Okay. I mean, it's absurd that I have to go to a hospital to do this. But I mean, they're used to this nonsense. So I just go to this place. I go to the part of the hospital where the nurses are wonderful and they say hi. And I can even call ahead as I'm leaving my house and say, I'm on my way. Could you put it in the centrifuge? Because this stuff is it's like molasses practically. And it has to be spun around for like a half hour before they can stick it in. And you don't want to sit there for a half hour. I mean, they've got it down to a science. So I go in and I go out, and it's fine with me. But yeah, right. The service provided is injection beneath the skin for, they have just a bunch of other things. And yeah, that can be $7,000. Oh no, they're saying that the hospital is charging $161, and the drug, the injection, is $7,500. I don't know. There it is. Sickening. Just flat out sickening. Okie doke. This thing. What? Mike? Dejected? It's dejected in D.C. Hi. Mike.
Okay.
Hi.
Now you know some important information about your drug. That it costs, that Medicare will pay $700. But that Walmart or what was it?
Walgreens. It was Walgreens. Yeah.
Says $1,000 isn't enough for them.
Yeah.
So they're not willing to take only
$300
profit
right.
to have their PA inject you with this $700 drug.
It's
That's
unbelievable.
what's criminal, is that to them $300 isn't a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Am I
Unbelievable.
missing something?
But where does UPMC get the gall to charge over $7,000?
Well, they have some mathematical equation that says their employee who makes this amount of money and our cost for storing the medication and bringing it here, they have some mathematical equation.
Oh yeah,
That isn't really math, but they make it up. Because there has to be a hospital regulator who comes in to say, what do you mean you pay $7,000 for this? Hospitals don't just work on their own. They're regulators for them too.
Yeah, I just don't even understand it. I mean, they say the Medicare approved charge for this is exactly what $7,000, blah blah blah, but then Medicare pays $700. What kind of nonsense is this? Highway robbery, people making out like bandits, and we, the people, getting sick, having to struggle to get access.
And now you know why we'll never have single payer plans.
Yeah.
Because if we all were on Medicaid, then the drug company couldn't charge $7,000 for it, and the hospital couldn't. That's the biggest fear, is that we'll all be on Medicaid, and that they'll have to charge reasonable amounts. That's not happening anytime soon.
Well, no, not in our the big guys rule kind of situation. No, there's no way. Unbelievable. And if this net neutrality disappears, it will be unbelievable. What do we like watching? We like watching Netflix now and Amazon. They've been getting awards left and right? They're putting out some good stuff. Can you imagine? I mean, all of that will go up in price or be slowed down if these guys have the ability to do so. Unbelievable.
Yep, that's the Republican dream. And your question earlier that said, they weren't educated correctly. I think they were educated with magical thinking, right? Same as Brownback in Kansas. They had this magical thinking that if you give more money to the rich, it will somehow make more revenue.
But now that you see Kansas,
yeah,
but Kansas, it's clearly shown because he implemented it in Kansas. Kansas has gone down the tubes. Don't they see this?
So anybody who thinks otherwise is thinking magically. It's magical thinking. Bush invented it. Bush and the whole trickle-down business with Reagan. They've been peddling the same magical thinking thing since I can remember. And they still keep peddling it.
That's why they called it voodoo. Voodoo economics.
Yeah. George Bush Sr. They're shysters.
Yeah.
And they're good at it. People believe them. Yeah. People in middle America think that if you just give more money to the rich, it will trickle down to me. Yeah, right.
Well, we're doomed. We're just doomed. There's too many stupid people around.
Yep.
There's just too many
stupid people.
Easily hoodwinked, bamboozled fools. And people who, think magically.
And there are going to be more of them because we keep defunding schools.
That's right.
Right? And soon under Betsy DeVos, we're going to have, voucher systems. So all the good schools will have rich kids, and all the bad schools will have poor kids.
Yeah. These people are...
pretty much how it is now.
Getting there. These people are vile. They are friggin' vile. I mean, it would be helpful if we just said they were stupid, but I think they're...
greedy.
Yeah.
I think it's greed.
It's
right? They want more.
Greed and lust for power. Right. I don't know what it is, but every time they get in power, they mess things up so that the people then say, God, everything's screwed up, and they elect a Democrat. And then a Democrat has to come in and for 8 years clean up the effing mess left by the Republicans. And then the brilliant electorate, after having the mess cleaned up, go right back and put Republicans in to destroy it all again. I'm sick and tired of this. I really am.
How many more presidents do you think we'll live through? Do the math. How many more do we have to suffer through?
Well, I don't know. Trump's something else, isn't he? His 100 days...
If we even have any more presidents.
Oh, you mean we're going to become a true banana republic? They'll find a way not to have any more elections.
Putin did it.
Yeah, Putin did it. But we have a bit of a history of democracy in this country. Russia never did. So I can't see it going like that. But I don't know. Anything's possible now, ain't it? It sure seems that way. Donald
Maybe
F.
5 more presidents. Are you going to live 20 more years, or 30 more years, or 40 more years? So how many more presidents are you going to live through? 5, 6, 4?
I don't know. I'm trying to find the thing that he said in the Reuters interview yesterday. Did you see that? Did you see what the president said?
What?
About, again, how the presidency is tough. Did you see it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it shows...
It's harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, he said, he was going to do all this stuff like this, like that, and now it took him about 100 days, but it has occurred to him that he doesn't have the power to just snap his fingers and have things happen, and he's not liking this. He's not enjoying this at all.
I saw something scarier, and it said that his aides are only giving him one option now. They're not bombarding him with more than one option. The aides just give him one option to say yes to. That's what should scare you.
Wow. So who's in control?
Right.
Who's running the goddamn country?
Chief of staff. Who's the chief of staff? Who's that?
Wow. Wow. Well, we're screwed. I mean, he really said, my last job, he said, he sort of said plaintively, like it was easier. It was fun. The fact is, the guy is, I'm sure, regretting this. He is regretting it. He knows he's in over his head, and he knows his freedom has been taken from him. He was pouting about the fact that he can't even drive a car anymore. His life is not his own, and it's really killing him. He'll probably welcome impeachment if it comes down the pike.
And the first thing you said was his last job. What people don't get is public service is not a job.
But he doesn't understand that.
It's all cushy.
Right.
It's not a job.
I know.
You're a servant to the public.
Right. And he's starting to see that, and he doesn't like it at all. He's unhappy. Oh, and so are we. Okie doke. Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Bye. You know, I said I wasn't going to talk about these taxes, but the corporate tax rate, right? Everybody's always squawking, America has the highest corporate tax rate. Yeah, on paper, maybe. But the way it works is you would be hard-pressed to find any corporation that pays the corporate tax rate, at the corporate tax rate. And if you do find one, they're run by idiots, obviously. You don't have good accountants. The GAO, the Government Accountability Office, has already determined that 2/3 of all corporations pay no federal tax. 2/3 pay nothing. And the whole thing driving this new tax reform is to, I guess, up that to nobody. I don't know. Large profitable corporations often pay no taxes. General Electric paid no taxes at all for 5 years in a row. Same with Boeing. Same with Verizon. Same with Priceline. And do you think like their CEOs are on food stamps? I don't think so. If you add it all up, the money that's come in from corporations in this country, the average rate is about 14%. So that's already lower than the 15% that Trump's asking for. I guess if they set the rate at 15, then the average would be down to like 2 or something. As Paul Krugman said, this is not tax policy, it's a heist. And then there's that other Republican bugaboo, the death tax, the estate tax. Do you know how many people now are eligible, would end up having to pay that tax? It's not even the 1%. It's less than the 1%. It's like 0.6% of the richest Americans would have to pay an estate tax. None of us, I assure you, and I'm making an assumption here. Got any billionaires in the audience? I doubt it. None of us will have to pay it. I think it's even less than that. It's about 1/5 of 1% of Americans. And to hear the Republicans talking about people losing the family farm, can we just cut to the chase here? Bullshit. Bullshit. And then you ask these guys, well, how would you pay for it? So then all of a sudden you won't get estate tax from this little group of gazillionaires when they drop dead. You won't get corporate taxes. How are we gonna run the government? Where's the money coming from? And the new Treasury Secretary said, growth. Because when we get done, man, this economy's gonna be humming. Growth. Did you see the latest figures that came out, I think, just today? the first quarter in terms of growth in the economy, because we've had a first quarter under Donald Trump. It's the lowest rate of growth in 3 years. Check it out. And there's such a great picture that was taken by, who was this? The New York Times. Great picture. And it's a picture, it's a picture of 5 men in gray suits and red ties, all with their white hands crossed in front of them. And their heads have been removed in the picture. So all you're looking at are these suits, the hands, and the feet. And all of these guys, it turns out, are people who attended the signing by the president, signing yet another executive order. This one, the Antiquities Act executive order. So in the picture, you see these well-suited white guys, headless. But right to their right is a head. It's the only head you see. And it's a bust of a former president of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt. Okay? The photographer who took this picture was one smart cookie. There you got all these white guys, satisfied white guys, headless with their hands in front of them, and there the head of Theodore Roosevelt, as the president, out of the picture, but in the room, is signing his executive order on Antiquities Act. Now, what that act is an act that was put into our rules of how we're going to behave as a nation by Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah, 1906. 1906. And a little over a century later, a buffoon sitting in the same office is going to try to destroy what Theodore Roosevelt, another Republican, when Republicans, bore no resemblance to what they do now. 1906, he put that law into place to restrict the robber barons and the rapers and pillagers of all from literally obliterating the beauty of the American landscape. So under the Antiquities Act, he created Yellowstone. He created all those extraordinary national parks. Grand Canyon, Olympic National Park, all of those done by President Roosevelt. And there is this bust, his head, looking on as our now president tries to obliterate what he did. Roosevelt created 18 monuments with this act that he pushed through. By the way, it had some bipartisan, it was. And now, other presidents, 15 others, have made use of the act, including Barack Obama, and there is now a total of 170 national monuments. It's something Obama did toward the end of his tenure that enraged Republicans, especially in Utah, because President Obama declared under the act, declared and created something called Bears Ears national monument. That is on land in Utah that is sacred to Native Americans and home to tens of thousands of archaeological sites, ancient cliff dwellings, all this kind of wondrous stuff. And the Republicans in the state went berserk because they, of course, wanted to develop it. There's money to be made here. Can you imagine if Theodore Roosevelt had not pushed through the Antiquities Act, had not created the national park system? Can you imagine what developers would have done to the most glorious pieces of real estate in this nation? For one thing, it wouldn't be accessible to you or me. The uber rich would have homes on it, I suppose. And in places where they didn't want to go, they'd be drilling and for whatever wealth is beneath the surface. It's unbelievable. And the way it works with what Obama did, that if leases for mining or ranching or drilling or anything else exist on the land that is then made into a national park, it can continue. It's just that new leases probably wouldn't have much of a chance. So there's Trump with his usual, I'm signing this, there goes the Antiquities Act. But here's the reality. Most legal scholars and historians agree that the Antiquities Act is not so easily gotten rid of and does not give the president the authority to revoke another president's previous national monument designation. So, yet again, it's all about looking like something's happening. I'm signing this. And likely nothing's going to come of it. Because he just does not have the right to do it. And I mentioned the other day, I think, that my brother had spoken to somebody who had worked at the EPA for a long time. And he had said, or she had said, that don't get too freaked out about all of these executive orders he's signing. Because it ain't that easy. And lo and behold, there was an article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette just yesterday with a headline saying efforts to repeal environmental rules face hurdles. And those hurdles are considerable. The Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and these other environmental laws that Trump has already gone after to satisfy his, satisfy who? His base, who wants to destroy the water and the air and the land. Ain't going to happen that fast. And in this article, they quote people who have also worked at the EPA for 1,000,000 years, including one woman who was in charge of enforcing the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. She's not at the EPA anymore, but she says this: the president and executive agencies cannot just tear up a rule. So his executive orders notwithstanding, you bump into the reality of how things work in Washington. First of all, they work very slowly. And in regulations like this, it involves a lot of what's called rule making, the hammering out of exactly what we're talking about here and what the rules are for corporations and other entities to have to hew to. Rulemaking takes a lot of time. It's a laborious process with hearings and thises and that's and maybe even appeals to courts. it's not simply a case of, all right, we're tearing up these rules right now, all right, which is what Trump keeps doing for the cameras. And I don't know that media is doing a very good job of telling us this is not something that's going to happen very quickly, if at all. He's threatened to go after this Great Lakes restoration thing. There's no way that's going to happen. If you look at the Great Lakes states, they got a lot of Republican governors, for one thing, and those Republican governors know damn well that would be one of the stupidest things you could do. Heading into a period of, who knows what, drought, where water is now going to be like oil. Our Great Lakes are an extraordinary reservoir. And protecting them should be way, way up. All these guys can ever think of is exploiting. Never protection. Exploitation. Because there's money to be made. Somebody pointed out, actually Stephen Colbert pointed out, now with Bill O'Reilly wandering in the desert, I guess some people, he's an author too. He writes unbelievably horrific books which sell, like you can imagine, hotcakes, I believe. And Colbert actually read a bit of one of those books, and I think it might have been the first one he wrote, a novel. Can you imagine Bill O'Reilly writing a novel? And it's called Those Who Trespass. And listen to this. Those Who Trespass is the novel, and the lead character is, this is a quote, a brash television journalist named Shannon Michaels, who is fired from his network news job and who then goes on a homicidal killing spree. And here's back to the book. This is O'Reilly writing. So he, in 1998, wrote a book about him, a guy very much like himself, who gets fired and kills everybody who had anything to do with it. Because that makes sense. That O'Reilly's certainly a vengeful kind of a sort. So here is what O'Reilly says in the book about this newsman turned killer. His career was the source of his feelings of omnipotence and grandiosity. Being on TV was like a drug to him, and when it was taken away, he had to find a substitute drug. Planning and carrying out the executions of those who had humiliated him. That is by novelist Bill O'Reilly, imagining, I guess, the unthinkable, that someone like him could be fired and publicly humiliated. And O'Reilly, writing, can think of only one possibility that somebody like that would then have to do, which is kill everybody who did it. So Colbert read that little snippet on his show and then said, Bill, buddy, hello, handsome. I just want to point out, I never humiliated you, okay? And then the New Yorker did a piece about it and about his books, and actually somewhat said, so Bill O'Reilly didn't invent the character of a homicidal newsman. Bill O'Reilly is a homicidal newsman. So if anyone turns up floating in the Hudson that's named Murdoch or something, we will know probably who the perp is. Oh, God. Okay, I think that's it. I thank you all very much. And we'll be back on Monday, as far as I know. And hope you have a good weekend, and go Pens.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.